I'm pretty sure you all have recently seen that Cam Thomas has signed his qualifying offer. As one of those restricted free agents that thought he was going to get 30 mil, Brooklyn said, forcing him to play on that qualifying offer. So in today's episode, we got to talk more contract, talk about Josh Giddey. Will the Chicago Bulls rethink Josh Giddey's contract after Cam Thomas signs his qualifying offer? Let's talk about it, break it all down. But before we do that, you already know, you gotta hear the music first.
Cognac, gang.
Shy Bulls podcast with the Cognac Boys. I'm Cognac Boy Bobby, and I'm holding it down on another daily episode. So if you're tuned in, locked in, ready to go, we got football today, but obviously we talking basketball today because we getting closer and closer to basketball in the football combination that just got everybody mad if you're not necessarily a fan. I told y'all still got time to talk to your lady, talk to your man, talk to your partner. Just go ahead and do that. But now we here. So go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe for your boy. But hey, it was reported via Shams that my man's earlier today, Cam Thomas, he went on and signed that qualifying offer, a 1 year, $6 million deal. And yeah, let's just say after seeking 30 million with guys like Cam Thomas, Jonathan Kuminga, and Josh Giddey, the first domino falls with restricted free agency, as a lot of teams are not really intrigued by what the restricted free agent market had to offer this season. You have not really seen many offers hit the table and then teams try to match or, just let players walk, like sometimes like things that previously transpired in years past. Guys pretty much stood by their laurels, and hey, that's where we leave us now. But Cam Thomas signed that 1 year, $6 million deal. Let's make it clear that if Josh Giddey was to sign his qualifying offer, he will be making $11 million on a 1 year thing. But the thing is, for Cam Thomas, now he plays on that $6 million with a chance to potentially earn more. That's obviously going to be predicated on his play this upcoming season, how teams feel that he fits into their respective system, and to see if they can actually have some type of belief that they can win with Cam Thomas. You know that the price that originally was 30 million. Everybody was looking at previous deals that were given out to guys like Emmanuel Quickly and Jalen Suggs. But at this moment in time, teams in 2025 was like, nah, we ain't really looking to cross over that 2nd April right now, especially if we don't have the certainty that we will be competing at least for a championship where it all stands now. But Cam Thomas, after playing this season, he gained some leverage moving into next season. Just a little bit, because it is a double-edged sword, as I previously mapped out for you all on previous episodes, as we've constantly been breaking this whole sign Josh Giddey stuff down. But Cam Thomas does earn himself a no trade clause and is able to enter free agency with about 10 teams that will have available cap space to per se sign him at a $30 million per basis. That is coming from Shams. But for Chicago, will you stand on business? Not business, business. If you're the Chicago Bulls, will you stand on business and be like, hey, Josh Giddey, I understand Cam Thomas went out there and said to hell with everybody, and he signed his deal, but you still only getting $20 million. Or would the Chicago Bulls look like it for a year rent, like a 1 year sense of relief per se, to say, okay, cool, we'll just have to cough up $11 million if you go out there and prove yourself. Maybe we'll give you that 30 million plus. But again, it is a double-edged sword when we talk about guys playing on a qualifying offer. On one end, let's just say, for Josh Giddey's sakes, let's say Josh Giddey knocks on the door of a triple-double. Average. Let's just say he goes out there, average 18, 8, and 8, or 18, 7, and 8. How does that affect the negotiations moving forward if he plays on that qualifying offer? Things get really, really interesting for the Chicago Bulls, because if he go out there and goes from a guy that struggled early on in the season and then gets it going on, and you have some questions entering 2025 offseason, but then goes into the 2025-26 season and damn near averages a triple-double. Let's throw in some other caveats. Maybe get close to an all-star game appearance simply because we got some major injuries in the Eastern Conference. And now all those concerns turns into leverage for Josh Giddey. Now, on the other side, while we got to talk about the other side of the sword, if you say to hell with the 20 mil, sign for the 11 mil and go out there and crap the bed, urinate on yourself, and not really perform to the level that we believe that you could perform to, if you're Josh Giddey, now that 20, maybe still be stuck at 20 if the Bulls be like, yeah, we understand the cap is going up. We still going to keep you at 20 or whatnot. You know what I'm saying? But what if they say, nah, we feel like you're worth $18 million? So now you're costing yourself money on, and then you already did not take the pay increase. Because if we keeping it real, I'm not going to sit here and act like I know what the Brooklyn Nets offered Cam Thomas, if they offered anything. I don't know. But let's say they offered him $20 million and he only signed for $6 million. You just left $14 million on the table. And if you don't play up to the standard to where you can recoup a lot of that money, you just dropped the bag. It kind of reminds me of that year, like when we looked at Dennis Schroeder and the Los Angeles Lakers offered him like a 4-year, $84 million deal or something like that. It was something that they offered him a nice bag. We just gonna call it that. They offered him some nice luggage. He said to hell with it. He ultimately didn't receive a contract of that magnitude again. Y'all correct me if I'm wrong on that. So for Josh Giddey and the Chicago Bulls, it's always going to be the same. Chicago, are you going to stand on business? Will you stand on business in this? Or are you trying to negotiate in good faith? I'm not saying that the Chicago Bulls have to bend the knee to give Josh Giddey all his demands, but are you going to say, hey, let's do a shorter term deal instead? We want you to sign a 20-year per, but instead of 4 or 5 years, I think it's like reportedly 4 years, let's do a 3-year with a play option on the back end. Now, the Chicago Bulls give us some leverage, so I don't necessarily think they will do that. But do you negotiate in good faith with a guy you traded straight up for when you let Alex Caruso go? So it's always those interesting things when it comes down to how the Chicago Bulls are going to pivot and handle themselves. And I'm interested to honestly see, when we're going back and talking about Cam Thomas again, you're playing for $6 million. How much do you really think you're going to get next season? And what do you have to achieve personally and team-wise to garner that 30 mil or over 30 mil? That's the tricky thing when it comes to playing on this qualifying offer, because you give up some of that long-term security, which is why, like, I came to the point and I was like, with Josh Giddey, look, I'd rather you get a pay increase, play for 2 years, and you exercise your player option in year 3 than to play on this qualifying offer and not have long-term security. Because I don't necessarily know if Josh Giddey is able to force the hand of the Chicago Bulls to having to play for 40 or pay up $40 million. Everything's possible. Everything is possible. But when you try to incorporate some realness in it and kind of live in reality into it, the Chicago Bulls, if we keeping it real, you really you cannot afford Josh Giddey to play on a qualifying offer and then still try to retain guys like Kobe White. Now, if the plan is we're going to let him play on a qualifying offer, allow Kobe White to do his thing, and have some type of plan in place to move Kobe White by the trade deadline, you can take that risk. But if you have the intentions of having Kobe White here long term, you you're putting yourself in a tough situation, especially if he goes out there and Kobe White performs and they make the playoffs and we see second half Josh Giddey for the whole term. Now, again, it's a double-edged sword because right here is just a conversation of hyperboles if we keep it real. We don't know what Josh Giddey is going to look like this upcoming season. We don't know what he's going to be health-wise because you cannot, yes, you can anticipate guys being healthy for an entire season, but sometimes shit just happens. Sometimes shit just happens. So I'm not even going to lie to you. I honestly think that, personally, I don't think he's signing this qualifying offer to play on 11 mil. Me personally. And if I'm Josh Giddey representation, look, let's try to get as close to 25 as we possibly can. And if we are going to have to give up some money, I want some reassurance and have a player option on year 3. I only want a 3-year deal. If I have to give up money, I want some leverage in this. And if I'm Josh Giddey's representation, you see the Chicago Bulls are not budging off the 30 mil, bro. You just see it. They're not budging. They're not giving you 30 mil. The center point is 25. That's what it seems like to me. There's been predictions placed out there saying that they probably can go to 22.5 per. Me personally, if I'm taking 22.5 per, if I'm Josh Giddey, I want a 3-year deal with a player option on the 3rd year. That's how I would approach it. And if I'm Josh Giddey's representation, we just got to have a real conversation. You ain't getting 30 mil. We want to get as close as 25. If the Bulls don't bust to 25, let's try to fight for some leverage. So when we understand that these markets have moved up, you know what I'm saying, depending on how much they move up, we earn some to where not only this year, you get you a pay raise. And then next year, you still maintain that. And then on a 3rd year, if you make an all-star team, if you are competing and performing at a high level, you do see some personal success aligned with team success. We're going to pressure the Chicago Bulls and say, we're canceling out and we're going to exercise our player option and we want a new deal so that we can go and recuperate some of that money that we lost. I think that's the perfect way to play it. Simply because right now, the Bulls seem like they are stuck on 20 mil. But the Chicago Bulls they have that right. We got to keep it G. We got to call it how we see it. I personally believe they're being ridiculous right now, simply because you can't have everything go your way. But when you hold the leverage, you can do whatever the fuck you want. But I also do believe in doing business in a good way, especially because you don't make Josh Giddey one of your young cornerstone pieces without trying to treat him well. I understand you have to keep it fair, you have to keep it business, but you still have to keep him well. And they are learning from their mistakes. Again, their mistake has nothing to do with Josh Giddey, but at the same time, you can learn from your mistakes and apply a little pressure on Josh Giddey to be like, hey, this is the best that we could do. But at the same time, we'll see what happens. I think that a deal should be coming hopefully before October 1st. I believe that's the deadline. Cam Thomas, the first one to fall. What's going to happen with Jonathan Kuminga? He does not want to be a Golden State Warrior. He does not want to be a Golden State Warrior. He does not want to be a Golden State Warrior, boy. That shit is crazy. Hey, he like, to hell with y'all. No, he can't. Hey, some players just don't work with Steve Kerr and Steph Curry. It is not to say that player isn't a good player. It's just to say that this system requires certain type of players, and every player, they don't pan out in this. We've seen guys like James Wiseman walk up out the door, D'Angelo Russell get up out of there. Now Jonathan Kuminga gonna get up out of there. It is what it is. But hey, let me know y'all thoughts on that, man, because that is it for me today. I appreciate y'all for tuning in to another episode. Before y'all get up out of here, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that bell, man. I appreciate y'all. Make sure y'all always see red. Y'all already know. I'm going to catch y'all on the next for sure.
Cognac. Gang.